Hello and welcome to Ukraine Today. My name is Sergey Ganisyan. In the next 10 minutes we are going to talk about the dynamics of NATO and Ukraine relations. Joining me now to discuss that is Ihor Kabanenko, a former Ukrainian admiral and the country's military representative to NATO. Mr. Kabanenko, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for the invitation.
So, in the light of the recent announcement of the new Supreme Allied Commander Europe, Mr. Curtis Caparotti, and his recent statement in which he said that NATO should support Ukraine with whatever the country needs to protect its territories, and he also said that he would look into what kind of weapons Ukraine needs and what kind of weapons NATO could provide. So do you think that this statement and this assignment are a sign of the changes between in the situation of the weapons shipment for Ukraine? I mean little weapons.
From my point of view, yes, of course, those words are promised, but keep in mind the decision-making process in NATO, and keep in mind, decision-making process in the United States of America. I think that it would be not easy to implement, this statement. We'll see how this situation will develop.
Will not be easy because of the bureaucratics or because of the position of some members of the NATO?
Because positions of some NATO members countries, and of course because election-initiated process in the United States right now. We'll see what would be after election, and we'll see what would be after Warsaw Summit, because in this regard also Warsaw Summit would be crucial.
Yeah, and considering Russia's position, would it be still a major factor to prevent NATO from shipping or providing direct military support for Ukraine?
Yes, of course, for us, for Ukrainian forces, some kind of delivery of lethal weapon, it's important. It's very important, especially anti-tank missiles and other equipment, which is defensive, not offensive. This is also important to understand, to clarify. But again, I would say what the long process of making decision, because this process in terms of lethal weapon was started in the beginning of in the mid of 2014, not successful right now. But again, I would say what it will depend on political decisions, solidarity in this aspect inside NATO member countries.
Can we expect this solidarity?
Because you know that it's a rule in NATO to make a decision based on the common decision consensus.
No, can we expect that these countries will achieve this common consensus?
All countries, not only, let's say, new countries, but mostly old members, like France, Italy, and other countries. But again, I would say what situation in terms of that is changing, because I remember in the beginning of this conflict it was strong resistance in terms of that, but right now we can see what some political leaders, they consider that as possible. So this is also from my perspective clarification what this is really civilizational conflict, what this conflict, this situation threatened to European countries, NATO countries, and we see last time a lot of counteractions, response actions from NATO side in terms of this Russian style of hybrid warfare.
But why the sudden change? Why would these countries who previously didn't want to send ships or send weapons to Ukraine, now suddenly they changed their opinion, or what? What happened?
It's a changing of situation, more information, what is really possible to get, to clarify for European countries, for citizens of European countries. Not only Russia today right now exists in media environment. I remember in the beginning of this conflict, one lady from one Western country asked me in some interview, what do you want? Crimea is a Russian, part of Russian territory. When I replied, from what this source you get this information? She said, Russia Today. So this is a possibility to get not only propaganda, but true information. And this is, I think, very important for changing some approaches in mind also, because this hybrid warfare, this is main battle space is mined.
Yeah, and you also mentioned weapons like anti-tank systems, right? But it seems that the conflict is somewhat de-escalating, especially compared to the situation in 2014 and in 2015. I mean, of course, Ilovaisk and Debaltsevo, but now the tanks are not used that much, I would say. So do we really need these weapons, or maybe we should get for some other equipment?
This is not exactly what you mentioned in reality, from my point of view, because this conflict, this type of new generation warfare, means, you know, wavy character of development situation. In some time looks like not intensive, but in some time it is very intensive. And from my point of view, it's not the end of this conflict, because Russia, we can see preparation from Russian side, military preparation, concentration of forces in different areas, and it is some kind of indicators what this conflict probably will develop, and it would be not the end of this conflict in this year.
And Russia is indeed relocating its forces not only near Ukraine, but also near the Baltic and near other countries. So do you think this would actually affect not only Ukraine, but also other countries like Baltics, who are the members of NATO?
Yes, and also I have a lot of friends inside expert environments, and in Baltic states, in Poland, and other countries. They consider this situation as challenged situation, because they see some maneuvers near the borders. They see some flybys of strategic aviation and so on. You know, this is some kind of military preparation, some kind of you know, preparation for military actions, and of course, it is create some you know, changing of approach, clarification, and so on, because it's not the same as it was before. Paritet, some kind of military paritet. It's the damage of paritet between countries, and of course, intention to show power, to show possibility to attack. This is what exists in reality, and of course we need to understand that. And I think what our colleagues clarify, what this is threaten of their territorial integrity, sovereignty, and so on.
But Moscow has repeatedly claimed that these provocations, like the jets, flybys, and which you mentioned, these are some kind of an answer to the NATO expanding towards Russia's borders. So would this shipment of lethal weapons make the situation even worse? Because Western experts, they claim that it would be the case exactly.
Yeah, it's a lot of different opinions exist in you know, this kind of liberal democracy, and it's an open discussion between different experts, politicians, and so on. But again, I would say we need to understand, but this environment, it's a threat of stability and security in Europe. And of course, in this regard, we need to build more close cooperation with NATO countries to avoid not only problems for Ukraine, but for their countries. Because Ukraine stands in first position of this civilizational conflict, this hybrid warfare.
But does NATO understand that?
I think so. Right now, understand more than it was before. But again, and of course, we see from NATO's side some responsive actions, not just provocative or proactive actions, responsive to defend themselves. This is important.
So what do you expect from the future relations between NATO and Ukraine? Do you think that, again, these Western experts, they say that if NATO accepts Ukraine as a member, then it would only make the security situation in the world worse, with Russia being hostile. So is it a possibility?
From my point of view, cooperation, a partnership between Ukraine and NATO will strengthen. And in this regard, again, I would stress what Warsaw Summit will be crucial, will be very important to not only to show, you know, some solidarity of NATO community, NATO countries with Ukraine, but to build practical mechanisms of this solidarity with different aspects, political, military, economic, and so on. This is important. Also, from my perspective, NATO right now, again, I would stress NATO more or less understand importance to unify efforts, to bring together efforts to stop this invasion, to stop this conflict. Yes, of course, right now based on political, diplomatic approach, but also keep in mind importance to build necessary capabilities to respond. This is also an important question, because this hybrid warfare, it's not just symmetric some actions needs. This is important to understand not direct, which kind of not direct capabilities, not direct actions we can provide to stop this conflict and to, of course, survive and win.
And of course, we need to have a stronger army to stop this conflict and make Russia exit. So you joined Ukrainian forces in 1993, and the changes you've seen must have been dramatic. So do you think Ukraine is approaching the NATO standards when it comes to army and military equipment?
It's a good question. From my point of view, we need to do a lot of work. A lot of work has been done, but we need to do more. Not only in the implementation of NATO standards, but also to change our approach, how we can win based on effectiveness, based on creation of necessary capabilities, and of course technologies. Technologies, from my perspective, are very important, and technological superiority on battlefield is very important, because nature of this hybrid warfare based on technologies.
But how can we develop these technologies if we don't have the budget? Compared to Russian budget, it's
yes,
small.
of course, it's a good question also, but I think here we can find a lot of opportunities to build defense industry cooperation, to use our legacy, because Ukrainian legacy in high-tech sphere very huge from the past time, and I think we have to use that. It's not only a question of resources. Of course, resources are important, but it's also a question to build comprehensive strategy to use all our capabilities, possibilities to do our best.
Yes, let us hope that common efforts of NATO and Ukraine could make Russia stop and put an end to this conflict. Mr. Kabanenko, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
You've been watching Ukraine Today. I'm Sergei Ganisyan, and today I've been joined by Ihor Kabanenko, Ukrainian's former military representative to NATO. Many thanks for watching us, and I'll see you next time.